Our guest headliner hails from Canada, where they have winter, which is one reason he travels to avoid it. He just returned from a 12-day transatlantic from Lisbon to New York City. In February, he will transit the Panama Canal, sailing from LA to Miami. And he says that's not a joke. Although, to be clear, for our members from the southern US, when Bob says LA, I believe he means Los Angeles, not lower Alabama. He says he discovered humor as a young Toastmaster and eventually to enjoy it when people laughed during his speech attempts. Now he shares ideas and a few laughs around the globe, 71 countries on 6 continents so far. He is the 48th person in Toastmasters to earn the professional level accredited speaker designation. Yes, big round of applause for that. He will share a few ideas with us today. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster, accredited speaker, Bob Hooey.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for allowing me into your homes on a Sunday evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. As Mary Jane was saying, I discovered humor the hard way. When I first joined Toastmasters, I was giving speeches and something strange happened. People started to laugh. They actually chuckled at something I said. The problem was I wasn't trying to be funny. I was trying to be a motivational speaker. That's why I came to Toastmasters. I wanted to be a motivational speaker and travel the world and encourage people. And they laughed at me. And after a while, I started thinking, gee, I wonder if that's humor. It must have been how I said it or something that got them to laugh. And eventually I got to the point where I thought, okay, the audience knows, and they're very intelligent. So who am I to say that I'm not funny? So I started enjoying that and allowing that. And now if I'm speaking and there's no humor, I go, wait a minute, is anybody there? Maybe just like when we were first starting doing these things on Zoom, it was like you wanted to knock on the screen and go, hey, everybody wake up, because nobody was laughing. All I saw was little black boxes, and it was like, it was horrible. I don't know for you, but it was horrible unless I could get some reaction. When we finally got back to live again, it was so nice to hear that laughter from people when I said something and they reacted to it. But the difference being between then, which was 33 years ago, and now is now I'm open to finding the funny. And as I was saying, finding the funny is just simply being observant and looking for something sometimes from a different perspective. And I mean, little things like there used to be a commercial on TV. It's not there anymore. It says, I can't remember what it was. I think it was X-Lax or something. Not for people with bladder problems anymore. And I thought, well, what about, actually it was Depends. And they were saying not for people with bladder problems. I thought, what's that, for lazy people? Just an observation. You sit here, I got Depends, I'm just going to enjoy the show. I'm just not going to get up in the middle and do it. But I am going to share with you a few points tonight that I've learned over the years in traveling around the world that will safety pushes, I guess, help you with your laughter, things I've learned the hard way, so that if you're looking to be more effective as a speaker, bringing humor into your presentations, because I honestly believe that humor is like a drawbridge between us and our audience. It allows them to come in and play. When we're laughing together, we're learning together, we can share. It's an honest experience and it's fun. And I don't mind now when people laugh. But first thing you're going to learn, if you are going to tell the joke, and I don't suggest telling jokes because I usually don't remember them, but remember the punchlines. Practice the punchline so you can they can wake you up in the middle of the night and you can deliver that punchline. Because I've seen so many people who are telling a joke and they screw up the punchline or they step on the laugh, and that takes away from it. So don't do that. I do suggest, though, especially to newer speakers, don't start with a joke. And there's a reason for that. If you happen to be really funny and it works and people laugh, you're golden. If you don't, it's really awkward, and it just makes it a tough call backwards after that. So, so if you're going to use punchlines, make sure you have them so you can nail them, so that the audience gets it. I mean, a punchline is basically you're doing something where you're going boom, 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 and then like somebody said it's a super joke, but orange, orange plywood. The plywood is the punchline. You can build on that. So anyway, that's a super joke, but it gets the point across with triples. And that's the other thing you'll notice is lots of times that our triples happen to be funny. Don't ask me why a quadruple isn't funny, but it isn't. So second thing to keep in mind too is, and I've seen a lot of people start that when they're speaking, they think, oh, I should put in some humor. I know this perfect story. It's a great story and it always gets a laugh. Whoa. And then they blandish it a bit and they put it in, but it's not relevant to the presentation. The one thing I teach when I'm teaching this, and I've written it in my books, is don't include a story, don't include an anecdote, don't include, if you're doing PowerPoint, don't include a meme or anything like that. If it's not relevant to your audience and relevant to what you're talking about, it'll hurt you in the long run. It takes away from your credibility, and it takes away from the effectiveness of what you're trying to get across to people. So make sure it's appropriate, for one. Make sure it's relevant, for two. And then make sure you got the timing right. Take a look at where you want to put it in your presentation so that it actually makes sense when you bring it in. Now, the other thing that I do, I tell people, I don't tell jokes, I tell stories. The interesting thing is if I tell a story and nobody laughs, then I just finish quicker. I don't have to wait for the laugh, but if they do, that's good. If they laugh. Well, it's one thing I learned in Toastmasters. I had to realize that if people laughed, it ate up my time, so I had to allow for that. And if they didn't laugh, then I just finished quicker. No big deal. And it takes the pressure off. See, not trying to be funny, not trying to be a humorist or a comedian. If you think I'm funny, I'm funny. If not, I just tell my story and move on. So something else that, like I was saying, timing is so important. I've seen so many people when they're telling a story, they get the timing wrong, and it either they overstep it or they let it lag, and they lose the funny because of the timing. And that's all too often that happens. Now, telling stories and humorous points in a speech is entirely different than being a comedian. A comedian, because I have a few friends that do that, their concept is to how many words can I take out and still be funny? Now granted, for us as speakers, we don't know how to do that, but we still don't need to be, a long drawn out story, like what they used to call the shaggy dog stories that eventually get to a point you go, that wasn't even funny, but I've been listening. I'm so invested. I want to listen, but you want to make sure the timing is right. And again, the timing, sometimes the perfect time to put in a story is when you want to uplift the audience. If you're sharing a speech where maybe there's something that's a bit of a, not so much a downer, but a darker part, because sometimes we talk about things that happen in our lives that aren't always funny. A great time is to have something in to bring them up again. So you never leave your audience down here. That's important. So another little thing that I've learned, don't be mean. I've seen people thinking they're funny by being sarcastic and putting people down. I was actually on a cruise ship once, and this old style comedian was out there, and he was saying things like, "Oh, hey, nice dress." And then he did a hand over his face, and yeah, somewhere there's some drapes missing. That's not funny. It really isn't. And the audience hated him. And of course, I started heckling him. I was sitting right down at the front, so I was throwing up things to throw off his memory. He said, "Hey, where is it that it says the little fat guy can throw off my thing?" I said, "Right here. You want to try me funny? I can mess up your timing because I don't think you're funny." And I got a lot of applause. I actually got more laughs than he did, but that's a whole different story. Vulgarity. I know you've got that in your thing in terms of when you tell jokes, it shouldn't be vulgar or inappropriate. And I honestly believe that you don't have to be vulgar to be funny. And I think if you are, I think it hurts you as a speaker. I think it hurts your credibility. It takes away from your power. It takes away from your connection to the audience. And that's important. One thing I'll tell you over the years, humor. Keep in mind that humor doesn't always travel. If I tell a joke, it might be funny here in Egremont. Well, actually, it isn't because my wife doesn't think I'm funny, but it might be funny in Tallahassee, Florida, but it's not funny here. And that's because people are different. You need to make sure that things are funny for you. I'll tell you a true story. I spoke in Iran a number of years ago, actually 2008, and I told a story that in North America always gets a laugh. Dead silence. It was like somebody stepped on a duck, just dead silence. And I asked my translator afterwards, and he said, well, I shared the story. And so I explained it to him, and he said, oh, that's funny. See, he didn't get it. So we also did a thing where 2 of the 3 speakers went to the Isle of Quiche, which is an open university, on the Saturday. And I told the same story. And the students were literally laughing in the aisles because my translator got funny. He got the funny. So if you're doing something outside of your norm, talk to people who are there and say, I'm going to tell this story. What do you think? Rather than having it out there and having people go, what do you say? I don't get it. So that's something else to be in mind. So I'm going to share with one thing with you, and then we're going to open for questions. Back in my district leadership days, I had a international director come up to me. I was single in those days. She said, Bob, I just heard something disturbing about you. And I said, what? She said, somebody told me that you don't date Toastmasters. And I said, yeah, I don't. And she said, why? I said, it's fear. She went, fear of rejection. No. I'm used to that. That's okay. I got that. She said, so she kept peppering me. And I finally said, fear of evaluation. And then she laughed. Because I said, think of it. At the end of the day, can you imagine she comes up to you and she takes you by your scarf and says gently into your face, let me talk to you about your presentation. Your approach left a little to be desired. Your clutch was slipping and your clothes was, forget it. So that's actually a true story. But I tell that because that would be appropriate for a Toastmaster audience. It wouldn't be for anyone else. So make sure that if you're selling a story, that it's appropriate for the audience because they'll get it. So I'll leave it open to questions at this point.
Well, Bob, I've had a few dates from Toastmasters, so I thank you for that joke. I'm going to use that many a times. Good story. Looking around the room. We got an opportunity to ask Bob, the accredited speaker, the idea man. Now, let's dive in a little bit here. Can you explain a little bit of your branding, Bob? Because we're honoring you with our scarves. What's your branding and why is that working?
Okay, well, the scarf brand is because of this weather. It's called winter, and again, it's a true story. I was doing a program for an executive group downtown, and I took off my overcoat and forgot to take off my scarf. And I'm literally halfway through the first hour, and somebody says, "Hey, I kind of like that style." What style? The scarf thing. Oh, okay. I mean, now I think of it as being European because anywhere I go in Europe, all the guys are wearing scarves, except they're wearing theirs, like this and the whole thing. I just, but it's true. The branding part, the idea man comes from working with clients and being a creative person. And very often having people go, oh, why didn't I think of that? Well, because I need the money and I got the idea. So, if I have the idea, you pay me. That's a good thing. So that's where the idea man came from. Because somebody said to me, "You're a real idea man, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I guess I am." That was about 25 years ago. And I still do. People ask me about it. I say, well, just hang out for a while. We'll talk. You'll figure it out. Because I usually sit there and we're talking. And I said, have you ever thought of, because I see things and I share things, and some of them have made people some good money. And the gentleman who did the foreword to my, one of my books actually took one of my ideas and made $12 million on it.
That's
I should have asked for a percentage.
Yeah, royalties there, royalties. Yep. Yeah. Looking around the room. All right, Melanie Chung.
Your
Hi,
last
Melanie.
point was about humor may not travel, do you find any universal themes that travel around the world?
Yeah, you can talk about. I always use me as an example because I travel. I travel well, but I can pick on myself. I don't pick on my wife because half the time if I'm traveling, she's in the room, and I'm always afraid she's going to say that's not the way it happened, because she does that at home. But never let the facts get in the way of a good story. But I think picking on yourself and your family, because we all have families, and families do weird things, so we can talk about that. One thing you don't do is, like, for example, don't pick on politicians in some countries. Like when I was in Iran, I didn't talk about the clergy because that would get me killed. And when I'm in certain other countries, I don't talk about certain things. Just be aware of what's happening where you're traveling. And the other thing is just talk to somebody who's there. That's what I do a lot of times if I'm going someplace brand new. I'll actually say, here's a story that I'm going to share. How would you interpret that? If they laugh, I'm usually golden. I'm usually okay, good. I'll keep it in.
Marvelous. Looking around the gallery. Any more before Bob gives us his closing words for success at adding humor? Terry Wells.
This is sort of odd, I guess. How do you find your niche? How do you find your audience, especially if you're like a special interest kind of person?
Well, actually, when I first started, it was any topic, any place, any money, like most of the people, until I started finding that there were certain areas that were more appropriate for me, where I had experience and I had expertise. Now, for me, some of what I'm working on, like when my most clients, I'm there to talk about business growth and success, and the books that I've written mirror that. They support that under that umbrella. But I think the biggest thing is get out there and talk and see what kind of feedback you get. Eventually, you're going to have people coming to you and asking you, they'll give you those magic words. How much would you charge? I mean, when you hear that for the first time, have an answer. Here's something in event. Have an answer. Don't go deer in the headlights. Oh, nobody's ever asked me those before. Just say, well, typically I charge. Or even better, just say, my fee is, no prerogatives, nothing. My fee is, and then shut up.
Yeah, that's a hard part for some of us. Well, Bob, you're awesome. I've been connected with Bob for multiple years through the internet and also seeing in Toastmasters and speakers accreditations. What's your final words for us as humorists, as speakers? How can we continue to improve from your world of experiences?
Well, I think the biggest thing you want to do is be open to learn, be open to explore, and to take chances. Because you're not going to grow if you don't take a chance. You don't know that you can't be funny until you try something. You don't know that you can't be motivational until you try something. You don't know that you can't get on that plane and travel all the way across the world and go into a brand new country, a new culture, and make friends until you try. The worst that can happen is you fail, in which case then you learn and you still grow ahead. Emphasis on grow ahead. Did you get that? A little subtlety in the word.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Bob, for those words of wisdom. And I'd just like to say that a lot of what you said really resonated with me, because we are a club that tries to keep the positive part of humor, not be putting people down. So no. I appreciated that. And speaking of positive, we have a positive club president who is going to be our first speaker today, the first prepared speech, other than the, of course, educational headliner. Francine Julien. Francine started a blog titled Transform Your Life, Building Confidence, Crushing Self-Doubt, and Mastering